welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We are talking food storage today, and in particular 5-gallon bucket food storage. If you have wondered how to package foods for long-term food storage in 5-gallon buckets, or maybe you've wondered how many pounds of a certain foods fit in 5-gallon buckets, we are going to be going through all of those details today in this video, so stay tuned. Let's get started.
By the way, if you would like help building your food storage, scroll down to the description box of this video and click this link for our free 1-year food storage plan. We calculated a year's supply of food for one person, then broke that data down into a week-by-week list of items to build your pantry on a budget. We'll send it straight to your inbox. If you're new here, we invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss all of our upcoming food preservation, pantry storage, and gardening tutorials. Now back to the kitchen. The foods we're packaging today come from our annual Azure Standard Haul. It's a natural and organic food distributor that operates as a customer cooperative. In a nutshell, customers place orders online, and Azure delivers to scheduled drop sites in communities across the United States. You pick up your order at these local drop sites, and everyone typically works together to unload the truck. The system helps keep costs down and makes organic bulk foods more accessible and budget-friendly. So let's get into what we get here. This is, like I said, an example of an annual pickup that we might do about once a year, so it pretty much consists of dry goods. This is a vanilla extract. I usually get 2 bottles for the year. Every now and then I might have to order a third one from Amazon. But we get our dried beans from there, our cocoa powder. This is a massive 40-pound bag of potato flakes. It is organic. The cost comes out to only 4 cents more per ounce than the cheapest you can get at Walmart, and the stuff you get at Walmart is not organic. So that just gives you an idea of price. Of course, it's going to vary by region. And then we also always get our oats from Azure Standard. We always get organic oats, and buying organic oats in smaller packages from somewhere online or even in stores is entirely too expensive. We can get bulk bags of organic oats. I believe they are 50-pound bags for just shy of $50, somewhere around $1 a pound. We also get our flour in bulk from them as well. Sometimes we get our nuts and dried cranberries from them as well. We're going to be packaging up these foods in 5-gallon buckets today. And before we get started, I want to address a common question that might pop up during the course of this video, and that is, why do I have some food grade buckets and why do I have some regular cheapo Lowe's buckets that don't seem to be food grade? So I wanted to address that right off the bat. You can see that one has a big food grade sticker. It was marketed as such, and you can see that the other one is something you would just see in Lowe's as for contractors put paint in or something. But when you flip them on the bottom, you will see this triangle that says HDPE2. Both of them have the triangle with the number 2 in them. HDPE number 2 is inherently food-safe plastic. This means that any bucket made from HDPE2 is technically safe for food storage, whether the manufacturer markets it as food grade or not. Buckets sold as technically food grade are simply HDPE buckets that have been manufactured and handled in facilities that follow strict food safety protocols. In my kitchen, I am totally fine with just washing and disinfecting before filling them, which I do that with anything anyway. Okay, so let's package up our beans. First, this is a 25-pound, was it 25 pound or 40 pounds? 25 or 40 pound bag of black beans. And this goes in 5-gallon buckets, and I'm going to be showing black beans, but this goes for all beans. In that jar, I have food grade diatomaceous earth. You can ignore the 1 tablespoon stuff that was for something else. But I will layer beans and a layer of diatomaceous earth and mix it all together. I just do want to reiterate that it needs to be food grade diatomaceous earth. There is a big difference. Unlike the difference in buckets, there is a very big difference in food grade versus non-food grade diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is basically crushed up teeny tiny little exoskeletons, fossilized exoskeletons, and if you were to look at it under a microscope, it would look like broken shards of glass. And basically what that does is, if there were to be any eggs in these beans that we can't see, and they were to hatch, they would not be able to survive very long in that bucket. They would walk across the diatomaceous earth, and they would essentially get sliced up. And if there are bugs that make their way into it, same thing, they're not going to last long. So I just alternate and layer beans, diatomaceous earth, beans, diatomaceous earth, and then just be sure to stir it all together and get all the beans good and coated. This is what I do. I mentioned I do it for beans, but I actually do this for anything and everything that needs to be rinsed before cooking with. This includes rice, all of our pastas, all of our beans, and lentils. Also, split peas. Anything that you would typically rinse underwater before you start cooking with, you can use food-grade diatomaceous earth on to help keep bugs away. I do a second layer of protection on these with bay leaves. It's just extra insurance. It's really not necessary, but just extra insurance. I'd put bay leaves on the surface as well as on the top of these gamma lids. I absolutely recommend using gamma lids, not those cheap flimsy lids that come with your buckets. They screw on tightly. They are essentially airtight. I always label everything, just plop it over on a bucket. And a bucket of black beans holds about 30 pounds. That's going to vary based on what size of bean that you are using. Okay, next up is our oats. We always purchase organic oats because oats are notoriously sprayed with glyphosate. So while we do not purchase organic everything, we do purchase organic and only organic oats. We also only purchase organic oats because we use them so often. If there's a food that I might only eat, just not all the time, I might not spring for the organic. But a staple like organic or like oats, they need to be organic in our family. So you see me doing this kind of ridiculous way of filling the buckets, but I didn't have any help on this day. I was here in the kitchen alone, and this was just the way that I could get it done without hurting my back and without having to lift it. So it made a little bit of a mess, but not too bad. So here are some of the ways that we use bulk organic oats, and that is just regular oatmeal. If you are friends of the channel, you know that we have all different types of ways that we use it and flavor it. Baked oatmeal, overnight oats. We have a video on how to make and prep overnight oats if you're interested. I'll try to remember to link that in the description box. We use it to make all of our granola. We used to buy granola, but it became expensive, and not only that, it was extremely high in sugar and some processed oils that we don't typically like to use. So we started making it ourselves, and everyone loves the recipe. We have a recipe on that on the blog, and I will link that in the description box below as well. We have our oatmeal cookies, and then the other thing I want to very briefly mention is using it to stretch meat. Meatloaf, meatballs, anything that you can hide in meat and to make it stretch, it works really well in. Okay, so to freeze or not to freeze, oats they're a grain. And so essentially, you want to pre-freeze any grains before packaging them. I did not pre-freeze these, and that is just a risk that I am willing to take because I have been storing oats in bulk for about 5 years now, and I have never, ever had an issue. That doesn't mean it won't happen someday, but I have never had an issue with bugs in my oats as long as they were stored in these Gamma Seal lids. But just so you know, just to know, it is recommended as best practice to freeze all grains, especially flour, which we will get to that in a minute, but oats as well. Even rice, anything in the grain family is notorious for having those pantry moth, basically the larvae hidden inside those grains that will then hatch later on in your pantry. But like I said, 5 years, never had an issue, so I'm not worrying about freezing these, but I do for flour. The other question that I wanted to address is why not Mylar? I get this question a lot. Why don't I store things in Mylar? Number one, I feel like it's an unnecessary expense. These foods are going to be rotated through within 1 year, 2 years max. Mylar is really kind of comes into play when you're looking into 5, 10, 15, 20-year storage. So I just don't think it's necessary. The second thing that I don't love about Mylar, and it might just be me, but maybe I'm super sensitive to it, but I feel like it leaves an aftertaste onto the food if it's been sitting in the bags for a while. I noticed this with my freeze-dried foods. When I first got into freeze-drying, everybody told me to use Mylar, so I did. Didn't, know any better, didn't know to try anything else, and I didn't like it. It had this weird, what kind of taste, like a tin, like a tinny taste. I don't know how to explain it, but almost like a very, very, very slight metallic taste to the food, and so I stopped using it for that reason, and I pretty much don't use it for anything. Okay, so after we get this all poured into the buckets, I do the same thing that I do with the beans, except no diatomaceous earth, because we don't rinse oats before using them. So no diatomaceous earth, but still use the bay leaves. I think I forgot to put them inside this bucket, but normally I put them inside the bucket, and then also scatter some bay leaves on top of the bucket. The idea is to stop bugs from the outside from ever entering in to begin with, and they hate the smell of bay leaves. One bucket, 5-gallon bucket, will hold approximately 17 pounds of oats. Put your label on there, and then the last thing I do before putting these up into storage is a lot of foods like this, just in the process of loading them up, get really, really dusty. So I will just give that a good wipe down, get it all nice and clean. This is really hard to do one-handed, so I did a much better job off camera of getting these things cleaned once I was able to have two hands to do it. Just get them nice and clean before storage. Okay, moving on to cocoa powder. They have the best price on cocoa powder, but it has just skyrocketed in the past several years, which is unfortunate. But I am putting it in the exact same cocoa bucket that I just now emptied out. I am not going to clean it out first because it just held cocoa, last week. So I don't do anything super special to this powder. We only purchase about 10 pounds at a time, and generally that lasts us the year. We use it in our smoothies, of course, all of our baking, all of our homemade chocolates, homemade desserts, and stuff like that. I do not put diatomaceous earth in here. There is no way to separate the dust from the cocoa powder, so the only thing I will use is bay leaves. For reference, one 5-gallon bucket will hold approximately 20 pounds of cocoa powder, and even though we don't get that much, I did want to put it here on screen because it really goes for any of your powders. Anything that is powdered in this type of state is going to be about 20 pounds will fit into a 5-gallon bucket. So again, gamma seal lid, always gamma seal lid, and pretty much always bay leaves on the top of that lid. I put them in the little compartments and usually on the top too. I wanted to show you the big bulk because I use bay leaves in this capacity. I don't buy the little spice containers at the store. I buy this 1-pound package, and I love it. I'm on the second year, and as long as I tighten down this bag really well and then snap on the airtight lid, they still smell as strong as they did 2 years ago. So I highly recommend buying those in bulk as well if you're going to be storing foods and using that as a pest deterrent. Okay, moving on to potato flakes. We love these for just quick cooking throughout the week, throughout our meals. I mentioned before that I reuse lids and reuse buckets, so I'm just going to plop this on top. And I wanted to mention that I will put the name of the item on the left-hand side, and on the right, put the date all the way at the top. And what that does is gives me room to mark out that date and put another date below it when I go to refill it next time, so I don't have to use a whole new sticker. So my husband was home at this point, and I was able to get him to help me, but he ended up using the same method that I used for the oats. A little bit dusty, but it really saves the back. And so we were able to get this stored up. I think we ended up needing 3 buckets for 40 pounds. But this instant potatoes, obviously they're good for mashed potatoes, right? When you don't want to go through the process of boiling whole potatoes. The boiling part's not the problem. The problem is peeling them. I do not like peeling potatoes. But the other thing that we really use these for is for thickening gravies in a gluten-free way. Normally we would do a roux with butter and flour and then, whatever kind of liquid, whether it be drippings from a meatloaf or milk for like a creamy white gravy. But if you are wanting to do a gluten-free way, which we do many times, we use instant potato flakes instead, and it's not quite the exact same consistency, but it is very, very similar, and it can stretch a lot of meals as well. One 5-gallon bucket holds approximately 13 pounds of potato flakes. Again, this doesn't get rinsed before cooking with, so no diatomaceous earth, but we're going to do those bay leaves. People have asked me before, doesn't the food take on the taste of the bay leaves? And I would have to say no. I mean, if someone is super duper sensitive to it, that they possibly could taste it. No one in my family has ever mentioned anything, and I've never tasted it myself. So again, putting the bay leaves on top, all of these buckets get stacked on top of each other and stored away in a closet. Okay, last but not least, I want to mention the flour. They have an excellent price on organic flour. I typically would purchase non-organic at the store, but their prices are so good that I can get organic, and always, always be sure, well, in my family, we get unbleached and unbromated. The first step is to put them in the freezer. I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about a previous product. Anything in the grain family, but especially flour, you want to pre-freeze minimum for 48 hours, but ideally up to a week. And what that does is kill any larvae, anything that could be in there that might hatch in your pantry later. Now, these are potatoes, but I didn't have a clip of this because they are still in my freezer. So I just wanted to show you that I package them the same way as I do potatoes. Bay leaves on top, bay leaves on inside the bucket. A 5-gallon bucket will hold approximately 25 pounds of flour. Now, I also package up flour in a different way. And this is a clip from a previous video that we did about 2 years ago, but I wanted to show you that there are 2 different ways that I store flour. If for whatever reason I can't fit that much flour in my freezer, and that happens sometimes, then what I will do is I will either buy the smaller bags as you see on my counter here, or I will still buy it in bulk and repackage into smaller bags and vacuum seal them. I get rolls of plastic so that I can create my own bags, which is what you just saw me do here, and that way I can cut them to exactly the size that I need, and not having to go buy any pre-cut sized bags. But essentially, vacuum sealing replaces the need to freeze, because if insects don't have oxygen, they can't breathe. So essentially, the idea is you take away their oxygen source. It's just as good, if not better, than freezing. I started out when I was storing flour in bulk. This is all I did because I had such a problem with pantry moths. But for the past year or 2, I have just been pre-freezing for a full week and then storing in 5-gallon buckets, as we discussed previously, with the bay leaves on top and the bay leaves on the Gamma Seal lids. And I have not had any issues with pantry moths. But I just wanted to note the vacuum sealing method just in case maybe you don't buy in bulk, or you don't have enough room in your freezer to pre-freeze for a week. Okay, y'all, I hope that was helpful to you. This tips for storing food in 5-gallon buckets. That's all for today. We'll see you next time. Bye.